4 years later, she returned with twins and a shocking revelation that changed everything. Hello, let's start another beautiful story. Welcome to my channel. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's go. Jessica Morgan's heels clicked against the polished marble floor of Carter Enterprises' new headquarters, each step echoing with purpose. The grand opening celebration buzzed around her, a sea of Denver's elite in designer wear, drinking champagne and trading business cards. But Jessica's focus remained singular, the man standing at the center of it all. Ryan Carter hadn't changed much in 4 years. His signature smile still commanded attention, his tailored suit speaking of success and power. He stood on a small platform, champagne in hand, basking in the admiration of his guests. Jessica's heart clenched at the sight, old wounds threatening to reopen. "Mommy, are we staying long?" Caleb tugged at her dress, his brown eyes, so like his father's, looking up at her with innocent curiosity. Beside him, Ethan fidgeted with his bow tie, a perfect mirror of his twin brother's features. "Just a little while, sweetheart," Jessica whispered, smoothing Caleb's curls. She'd dressed them in matching navy suits, their wild curls tamed as much as any 4-year-olds could be. They were beautiful children, carrying the perfect blend of her and Ryan's features, though nobody in this room knew that yet. The crowd's murmur shifted as Ryan began his speech. "Welcome to the future of Carter Enterprises." His voice carried across the atrium. "This building represents not just our success, but our commitment to innovation and excellence." Jessica's grip tightened on her clutch. 4 years ago, she'd stood in his office, a much smaller one then, trembling as she told him about the pregnancy. His response had been cold, calculated. "Take care of it, Jessica. I'm not ready for this kind of responsibility." When she'd refused, he'd fired her from her junior executive position and made it clear she wasn't welcome in his life. Now she was back, not as the naive girl who'd fallen for her charismatic boss, but as the CEO of Morgan Digital Solutions, a rising star in the tech industry. The invitation to this event had landed on her desk 2 weeks ago, and she'd known it was time. "Mr. Carter's speech is boring," Ethan complained loudly enough for nearby guests to turn and smile. A few did double takes, their eyes darting between the boys and Ryan on the platform. Jessica noticed Victor Hale, Ryan's business partner, watching them with particular interest, his expression unreadable. "Shh," Jessica soothed, though her heart raced. She'd positioned them perfectly, close enough to be noticed, but not so close as to cause an immediate scene. The whispers had already started, spreading through the crowd like wildfire. Ryan was concluding his speech when his eyes finally found them. Jessica watched as recognition, confusion, and shock passed across his face in quick succession. His gaze locked onto the boys, and she saw the exact moment realization struck. He stumbled over his words, recovered quickly, but his composure had cracked. The applause that followed his speech felt distant to Jessica as she watched Ryan hand his champagne glass to an assistant and make his way through the crowd. Each step brought him closer, his expression growing stormy. "Jessica," he said when he reached them, his voice tight with controlled anger. "What an unexpected surprise!" His eyes couldn't help but drift to the twins, who were now hiding partially behind her dress. "Ryan," she replied coolly, "congratulations on the new building. It's quite impressive." She placed a protective hand on each of her sons' shoulders. "I believe you haven't met Ethan and Caleb." The color drained from Ryan's face as he took in their features up close, his own smile, his eyes, even the dimple in Caleb's left cheek that matched his exactly. The resemblance was undeniable. "My office." "Now," he managed through clenched teeth. Jessica smiled, the same confident smile that now graced magazine covers. "Actually, I have a better idea. Why don't we meet tomorrow? I'm sure you'll want time to process this, and my boys need their dinner and bedtime routine." She reached into her clutch and pulled out a business card. "My office, 9 a.m. We have a lot to discuss, Ryan, and not all of it is about them." She turned to leave, her son's hands firmly in hers, feeling Ryan's stunned gaze boring into her back. As they walked away, she caught Victor Hale watching the scene unfold, a slight smile playing at his lips. Jessica suppressed a shiver. She knew what that smile meant, and it only reinforced why she'd chosen to return now. The truth about Victor would have to wait. For now, she'd planted the seeds of the storm that was about to hit Ryan Carter's perfectly ordered world. As she helped her boys into their car seats, Jessica took a deep breath. Phase 1 was complete, but the real battle was just beginning. Ryan Carter stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his new office, watching the Denver skyline blur through his third glass of whiskey. The celebration below had long since ended, but the image of Jessica Morgan and those two boys remained burned into his consciousness. His perfectly orchestrated evening had crumbled the moment he saw them, saw himself in those young faces. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Victor Hale's voice cut through his thoughts. Ryan turned to find his business partner lounging in one of the leather chairs, swirling his own drink with practiced ease. "Did you know?" Ryan's voice was raw. "Did you know she was coming tonight?" Victor's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. The invitation list passed through dozens of hands. "Ryan, Morgan Digital Solutions is making waves in the industry." It would have seemed peculiar to exclude them. Ryan slammed his glass down. "That's not what I meant, and you know it. Those kids, Victor, those boys are—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "By your spitting image." Victor stood, straightening his perfectly pressed suit. "I must admit, the resemblance is rather striking. Though Jessica's done well for herself, hasn't she? Quite the transformation from the quiet little junior executive who used to bring you coffee." The reminder stung. Ryan remembered that Jessica, the one who'd looked at him with admiration, who'd believed in his dreams even more than he did, the one he'd cast aside when she became an inconvenience to his ambitions. 4 years, Ryan muttered, running a hand through his hair. "She kept this from me for 4 years. Did she?" Victor's tone was carefully neutral. "As I recall, you made your position quite clear when she came to you with the news. 'Take care of it,' I believe were your exact words." Ryan spun to face him. "You weren't there." "No, but walls in the old office were thin, my friend. And some of us pay attention to the human elements you tend to overlook." Victor moved to the wet bar, pouring himself another drink. "Speaking of overlooking things, have you reviewed the Morrison contract?" "The Morrison?" "Victor, I just found out I have 2 sons. The contract can wait." "Can it?" Victor's voice sharpened. "Because our investors might disagree. Jessica Morgan showing up with your secret children isn't the only surprise we need to worry about. The audit team found some discrepancies." Ryan's head snapped up. "What kind of discrepancies?" "The kind that make me wonder if someone's been accessing information they shouldn't." Victor pulled out his phone, scrolling through something. "Did you know Morgan Digital Solutions just landed 3 major contracts? Interesting timing, wouldn't you say?" The implication hung heavy in the air. Ryan remembered Jessica's parting words. "Not all of it is about them." His stomach churned. "She wouldn't," he said, but uncertainty crept into his voice. The Jessica he'd known wouldn't have. But this new Jessica, with her confident smile and steel in her eyes, he didn't know what she was capable of. "No!" Victor raised an eyebrow. "Then explain how her company knew exactly where to bid, exactly what numbers to hit. The same sectors we've been targeting, Ryan. The same clients." Ryan sank into his chair, his world spinning. "First the twins, now this. What do you suggest?" "Let me handle it," Victor said smoothly. "I'll have our security team look into any possible breaches. Meanwhile, you focus on damage control with the board. The last thing we need is them getting nervous about your personal situation." Ryan nodded numbly, missing the calculated gleam in Victor's eyes as he turned back to the window. Below, the city lights twinkled innocently, masking the tremors about to shake his carefully constructed world. His phone buzzed, a calendar reminder. Morgan Digital Solutions, 9 a.m. Tomorrow he would face Jessica, face the truth about those boys, his sons. The word felt foreign in his mind. Oh, and Ryan, Victor paused at the door. Whatever Jessica Morgan is planning, remember, you built this company from nothing. Don't let anyone threaten that. Not even the mother of your children. After Victor left, Ryan pulled up Jessica's company profile on his laptop. The woman in the professional headshot barely resembled the Jessica he'd known. Her smile was confident, her eyes determined. The company overview listed impressive growth, strategic acquisitions, innovative solutions, everything he would have wanted in a business partner. He clicked through photos of corporate events, charity galas, tech conferences. In one, Jessica stood at a podium, accepting an award for women in technology. The caption noted her commitment to single mothers in STEM fields. The irony wasn't lost on him. His phone buzzed again, a text from his assistant with a preliminary background report on Jessica and Morgan Digital Solutions. Ryan hesitated before opening it. Part of him wanted answers, wanted to understand how she'd risen from the ashes of what he'd done to her. Another part dreaded what he might find. Tomorrow would change everything. He had 4 years of choices to answer for, 2 sons to face, and a growing suspicion that Jessica's return had set something in motion that neither of them could control. As he finally left his office, the weight of his past pressed down on him like the darkening Denver sky. In the parking garage, he paused at his car, catching his reflection in the window. His father's words echoed in his memory. Success demands sacrifice, son. He'd lived by that motto, sacrificed everything and everyone for success. Now, looking at his own tired eyes, he wondered if the price had been too high. Was that our daddy? The question hung in the air of Jessica's penthouse apartment as she helped Caleb with his bow tie. She'd known it was coming. Her boys were too observant, too clever to miss the tension at the party. Still, the immediacy of it made her heart ache. What makes you ask that, sweetheart? She kept her voice steady, buying time as she moved to help Ethan with his shoes. Because, Ethan chimed in, he looked at us funny, and Ms. Regina at school says sometimes kids have daddies they don't see much. Jessica sat back on her heels, looking at her sons, their intelligent eyes, Ryan's distinctive features softened by her own. They'd been asking more questions lately, and she'd promised herself long ago never to lie to them. Yes, she said softly, that was your father, and tomorrow I'm going to talk to him about some very important things. Can we come? They asked in unison, their eyes lighting up with hope. Not tomorrow, my love, but soon. She pulled them both into a hug, breathing in their familiar scent. Now, who wants breakfast for dinner? The kitchen soon filled with the sounds of laughter and sizzling pancakes, but Jessica's mind wandered to the encrypted files on her laptop, the ones that had arrived 6 months ago from an anonymous source within Carter Enterprises, revealing Victor Hale's elaborate scheme to destroy both Ryan's company and anyone connected to it. As the twins debated the merits of blueberries versus chocolate chips, Jessica's phone buzzed. A text from her head of security, Daniel Walsh. Surveillance confirmed. Black sedan, 2 blocks south. Same as last week. Jessica's hand trembled slightly as she poured more batter onto the griddle. They were watching her again. Victor's men, no doubt. The same ones who'd been following her ever since she'd received those files. Mommy, you're burning it. Caleb's voice snapped her back to the present. Oh! She quickly flipped the pancake, revealing its blackened surface. Well, this one's for the pancake graveyard. Who wants to say the eulogy? The boys dissolved into giggles, launching into an elaborate ceremony for the fallen pancake. Jessica forced herself to stay present, to savor these moments. They were the reason she couldn't just take the evidence to the authorities. Victor had made it clear, through subtle threats and accidental encounters, that he had reach even in law enforcement. Later, after stories and tucking in and final glasses of water, Jessica sat in her home office, surrounded by the life she'd built from the ashes of her past. Magazine covers featuring her success story adorned one wall. Rising Phoenix, How Jessica Morgan Revolutionized Tech Investment, Innovation's New Face. Morgan Digital Solutions Breaks Records. She pulled up the files again, scanning through the evidence of Victor's elaborate fraud. Shell companies, falsified contracts, manipulated data, all designed to siphon millions from Carter Enterprises while setting up Ryan to take the fall. But it was the last file that always made her blood run cold. Detailed surveillance photos of her and the twins, dating back to when they were just 2 years old. Victor had known about them all along. He'd been watching, waiting, using them as leverage in his long game against Ryan. The thought that her children had been unknowing pawns in his scheme made her sick. Her laptop pinged, an encrypted message from her inside source. V moving pieces into place. The board meeting moved up to Friday, timeline accelerating. Jessica closed her eyes, remembering the moment 4 years ago when she'd walked out of Carter Enterprises, pregnant and terrified. She'd sworn then that she would never let anyone make her feel powerless again. She'd built her company from nothing, protected her children, prepared for this moment. But seeing Ryan today, watching his world shatter at the sight of the twins, it had affected her more than she'd expected. The way his hands had trembled slightly, the flash of recognition and regret in his eyes. She'd wanted him to hurt once. Now she just needed him to listen. Her phone buzzed again, this time an email from Victor Hale himself. "Lovely seeing you this evening, Jessica. Your boys are remarkable. Such a shame if anything were to disturb their peaceful life." The threat was clear. Victor knew she had the evidence. He was reminding her of the stakes. Jessica moved to the twins' room, watching them sleep. Ethan had kicked off his covers as usual, while Caleb clutched his worn, stuffed elephant. They looked so peaceful, so untouched by the danger swirling around them. Tomorrow, she would face Ryan. She would show him the evidence, make him understand that Victor was the real threat. But first, she had to convince him to look past his anger, past his wounded pride, to see what really mattered. Back in her office, she pulled up the presentation she'd prepared for tomorrow's meeting. Charts, graphs, projections, all showing how Victor had been systematically destroying Carter Enterprises from within. But would Ryan believe her? The man who dismissed her so easily 4 years ago. Her security system chimed softly, movement in the building's lobby. She switched to the camera feed, watching as the same black sedan pulled up outside. A man in a dark suit stepped out, looked directly at her building's cameras, and smiled before driving away. Another message from Victor. Jessica squared her shoulders, her reflection in the window showing the same confident pose she'd perfected for magazine covers. But tonight, alone in her office, she let the facade crack just slightly. Tomorrow would change everything for better or worse. She just prayed she was strong enough to protect everyone she loved from the storm that was coming. Morgan Digital Solutions occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming tower in downtown Denver. Ryan stood in the lobby, noting how the modern decor managed to feel both welcoming and powerful, much like Jessica herself had appeared last night. The wall behind reception showcased the company's achievements. Awards, press coverage, charity recognition. 4 years of success he'd known nothing about. "Mr. Carter," a young assistant approached him. "Ms. Morgan, we'll see you now." The elevator ride to the top floor gave Ryan time to rehearse his prepared speeches, his demands for explanations, his righteous anger about being kept from his sons. But when the doors opened directly into Jessica's office, the words died in his throat. The space was a testament to thoughtful design, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the Rocky Mountains. But what caught his attention was the wall of photographs behind Jessica's desk, pictures of the twins, birthday parties, first steps, playground adventures, all the moments he'd missed. "They were born on December 12th, Jessica said without looking up from her laptop. "Ethan came first, then Caleb 7 minutes later. They were early. I was terrified." She finally met his eyes. "The doctor said the stress of being fired while 7 weeks pregnant might have contributed to that." Ryan's anger flared. "You could have told me they survived. You could have..." "Survived?" Jessica's laugh was sharp. "Is that what you assumed?" That I followed your suggestion to take care of it. She stood, her professional demeanor cracking slightly. I tried to tell you, Ryan. 3 times I came back to the office. Your security team had orders to stop me. I never gave those orders. No! Jessica pulled up something on her laptop. Here's the email. Would you like to see who did? Ryan moved closer, reading the screen. His blood ran cold. The directive had come from Victor's office, CC'd to building security, dated 1 week after he'd fired Jessica. Victor told me you'd left the state, Ryan said slowly, that you'd moved to California for a fresh start. And you believed him, just like you believed him when he said I was trying to trap you with a fake pregnancy. Jessica's voice was controlled, but her hands trembled slightly. Or did you ever once try to find out the truth for yourself? The question hit him like a physical blow. No, he hadn't. He'd been too focused on the Morrison merger, too convinced that Victor was protecting the company's interests, too afraid to face what he'd done. Why now, Jessica? Why come back after all this time? Instead of answering, Jessica opened a drawer and pulled out a thick file. And because of this, she spread photographs across her desk, surveillance photos of her and the twins over the years. Your friend Victor has been watching us since the day I left. At first, I thought it was you, keeping tabs. Then I received this. She handed him a USB drive. 6 months ago, someone inside Carter Enterprises sent me proof that Victor has been systematically destroying your company from within. The Morrison contracts, the Asian expansion, the new tech division, it's all built on fraud. He's setting you up to take the fall when it all comes crashing down. Ryan stared at the drive. That's impossible. Victor and I built this company together. He wouldn't, the same way you built the original startup together. Jessica's voice softened slightly. Ryan, I remember the truth. I was there, remember? When you were working out of that tiny office, before Victor came along with his connections and his promises, I saw how things changed after he joined. Memory stirred. Jessica bringing him coffee late at night as he struggled with coding issues, her quiet suggestions often proving more valuable than Victor's grand plans. She'd seen the company's foundations being laid. She'd seen everything. The board meeting on Friday, Ryan said suddenly. Victor's pushing to finalize the Morrison deal. A deal that will give him controlling interest once the fraud is exposed. Jessica nodded. And once you're out of the way, there's nothing to stop him from coming after everyone else involved in the original company, including me, including our sons. Ryan sank into a chair, his world tilting on its axis. The discrepancies in the audit are just the beginning. Jessica moved to the window, looking out at the mountains. I didn't come back for revenge, Ryan. I came back because Victor's endgame is starting, and you're the only one with enough power to stop him. But first, you had to know about the boys. You had to understand what's really at stake. Why didn't you go to the authorities? Victor has people everywhere. The last whistleblower who tried to expose him died in a random mugging. I built this company, made myself successful enough to protect our children, but I can't fight him alone anymore. Ryan stood, moving to join her at the window. From this height, Denver looked peaceful, unknowing of the betrayals and dangers lurking in its corporate towers. The boys, he said softly. Tell me about them. Please. Jessica's professional mask slipped, revealing the mother beneath. Ethan loves dinosaurs and wants to be an astronaut. Caleb prefers art and can spend hours drawing. They both have your talent for numbers and your stubborn streak. She turned to face him. They're amazing, Ryan, and they're in danger because Victor knows they're your weakness, a weakness he gave you by keeping us apart 4 years ago. Ryan's phone buzzed, a text from Victor. Where are you? Board members asking questions about Jessica Morgan's appearance last night. Looking at the message, Ryan finally understood. Victor had orchestrated everything, the separation, the surveillance, the fraud. He'd isolated Ryan, used his ambition against him, all while planning his destruction. What do you need me to do? He asked. Jessica's relief was visible, but her expression remained serious. First, we need to secure the evidence. Then we need to understand exactly how deep Victor's network goes. But most importantly, she hesitated, you need to decide what kind of father you want to be. Because once we move against Victor, everything changes. For all of us. Ryan looked at the wall of photographs. 4 years of memories he could never get back. But maybe, just maybe, he could help create new ones. If they survived what was coming. The playground at Washington Park was quiet for a Saturday morning, the early spring chill keeping most families away. Ryan sat on a bench, his usual tailored suit replaced by jeans and a sweater, watching as Jessica helped the twins navigate the monkey bars. "Ready?" she called up to Ethan, who dangled uncertainly from the first bar. "I can do it," he insisted, his face scrunched in determination, an expression Ryan recognized from his own childhood photos. Caleb, already at the other end, shouted encouragement. "Come on, Ethan, just 3 more." Ryan's hands clenched involuntarily as Ethan swung to the next bar, his heart racing with an unfamiliar protective instinct. Jessica had orchestrated this meeting carefully, choosing neutral ground where Victor's surveillance would blend in with normal park traffic. "They're usually more energetic," Jessica said, joining him on the bench while keeping her eyes on the boys. "No, but they were so excited about meeting you, they barely slept last night. You told them," Ryan's voice caught, "that you wanted to know them. Yes, they deserve honesty, Ryan. They've had enough people watching from the shadows." The weight of her words hung between them. That morning, Jessica had shown him more surveillance photos, Victor's men outside the twins' preschool, at their pediatrician's office, even at their favorite ice cream shop. "The security team you hired," Ryan said quietly. "They're good, the best I could find, ex-military counterintelligence background. They keep their distance, but they're here." Jessica nodded subtly toward a woman jogging with a dog, a man reading on a distant bench. "They've kept us safe so far." "Daddy!" Caleb's voice cut through their tension. "Watch this!" Ryan's heart lurched at the word daddy, so casually offered, so massive in its implications. He watched as Caleb demonstrated an elaborate jumping technique from the lowest bar, his curls bouncing as he landed. "Impressive," Ryan managed, earning a beaming smile that was mirror of his own. "I can do it too." Ethan scrambled down, not to be outdone. "Be careful, baby," Jessica called, but Ethan was already launching himself into the air. He landed awkwardly, and Ryan moved without thinking, closing the distance in 3 long strides to steady his son. Tiny hands gripped his arms, and Ryan found himself staring into eyes that matched his exactly. "Good catch," Ethan said seriously. "Mommy says I need to work on my landings." "The landing is the most important part," Ryan heard himself say. "That's true in business too, you know." "You do business like Mommy?" Caleb had appeared at his side. "And she has a big office and helps people make their dreams come true with computers." Ryan glanced at Jessica, who was watching the interaction with an unreadable expression. "Your mom is very good at what she does. Better than me in many ways. Do you want to see the fort?" Ethan tugged at his hand. "We built it last week. It's secret." The fort turned out to be a hollow beneath some bushes, complete with buried treasure, plastic coins, and a lookout post, a low branch. Ryan found himself crouching in the dirt, listening intently to elaborate stories about dinosaur attacks and space pirates. His phone buzzed in his pocket, ignored. It buzzed again, ignored. The 3rd time, Jessica caught his eye and nodded slightly. They couldn't ignore the outside world forever. The message was from his assistant. "Emergency board meeting called for Monday. V says critical issues with Morrison deal need immediate attention." "He's moving faster than we expected," Ryan said quietly when the twins were distracted by a passing dog. "He knows something's changed." Jessica's voice was tense. "And my source inside Carter Enterprises said he's been asking questions about our meeting." "Daddy, are you coming to our house?" Caleb's question jolted them both. "We have dinosaur chicken nuggets." Ryan looked at Jessica, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "Actually, that would be perfect," she said. We have some work to discuss, anyway." The drive to Jessica's penthouse was surreal, his sons chattering in the back seat of her SUV, pointing out their favorite places along the way. Ryan noticed the black sedan that pulled out 3 cars behind them, maintaining a discreet distance. "Our security," Jessica murmured. "But we should assume Victor has people watching too." The penthouse surprised him, not with its luxury, which he'd expected, but with its warmth. The boys' artwork covered the fridge. Toys were neatly organized in colorful bins, and photos everywhere told the story of the family life he'd missed. While Jessica heated up the promised dinosaur nuggets, Ryan found himself drafted into an elaborate game involving action figures and a toy rocket ship. The boys worked seamlessly together, assigning him a role in their well-established universe. "And the bad guy wants to steal the magic crystals," Ethan explained, handing Ryan a figure. "But we're going to stop him, because that's what heroes do," Caleb added solemnly. Ryan's throat tightened. Here were his sons, unknowingly playing out a version of the real battle ahead. "Yes," he managed, "that's exactly what heroes do." Over dinner, he watched them use their nuggets to act out more stories, marveling at their imagination and energy. Jessica moved around them with practiced ease, anticipating needs, maintaining order with gentle reminders about napkins and sitting properly. It wasn't until the boys were settled in front of a movie that Ryan and Jessica could really talk. In her home office, she pulled up the latest data from her source. Victor's scheduled private meetings with 3 board members before Monday, she said, showing him the calendar. "He's laying groundwork for something big." "The Morrison deal is worth billions," Ryan said, "but the numbers never quite added up. I should have seen it sooner. You saw what he wanted you to see." "We all did." Jessica's voice softened. "The question is, what do we do now?" Before Ryan could answer, a small voice called from the doorway. "Mommy! Can Daddy read us our bedtime story?" They both turned to find Caleb in his dinosaur pajamas, clutching a well-worn book. The hope in his eyes made Ryan's chest ache. If that's okay," Ryan said, looking at Jessica. She smiled, a real smile, not the guarded one she'd worn earlier. "Of course, it's the little engine that could tonight." Their favorite. Later, sitting between 2 sleepy boys in their shared room, Ryan read about determination and courage and believing in oneself. As their breathing deepened into sleep, he carefully extracted himself, pausing at the doorway to memorize the scene. "They leave a mark on your heart, don't they?" Jessica said softly behind him. "I want to be part of their lives," Ryan whispered. "Really part of it, not just someone who drops by occasionally." "Then help me stop Victor," she replied, "because until we do, none of us are truly safe." Back in the office, they worked late into the night, piecing together evidence, planning their next moves. But Ryan's mind kept drifting to toy rockets and dinosaur nuggets, to small hands gripping his for balance, to stories of heroes stopping bad guys. He had a new motivation now, stronger than ambition, more powerful than pride. He had a family to protect. Sunday morning found Ryan in his downtown apartment, surrounded by financial reports and encrypted emails. He hadn't slept, his mind replaying moments from yesterday. Ethan's laugh, Caleb's serious explanations, the way they'd trusted him so quickly despite his absence in their lives. His phone lit up with a text from Jessica. "Turn on Channel 7 News." Now, the morning business report was featuring a breaking story about potential irregularities in Carter Enterprises' recent acquisitions. The reporter, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, was questioning the timing of the Morrison deal. Ryan's phone rang. "Victor, have you seen the news?" Victor's voice was controlled, but Ryan caught the underlying tension. "We need to get ahead of this. I'm calling an emergency meeting with PR on a Sunday." Ryan kept his tone neutral, remembering Jessica's warning about playing his part carefully. "This kind of story could tank the Morrison deal if we don't handle it properly." A pause. "Interesting timing, wouldn't you say? Right after Jessica Morgan's dramatic return. What are you implying, Victor?" "Just finding it curious that these irregularities surface now. Almost as if someone with inside knowledge is trying to manipulate the situation." Victor's voice hardened. How was your meeting with her, by the way? The one you didn't think to mention to me?" Before Ryan could respond, his laptop pinged with an urgent email. Jessica had forwarded him security footage from her building's garage. 2 men in dark suits attempting to break into her car last night. "I'll be there in an hour," Ryan said to Victor, his mind racing. "But let me make some calls first." He dialed Jessica immediately after hanging up. "Are you and the boys safe?" "We're at my lake house," she replied, the sound of children's laughter in the background. "My security team suggested a change of location after last night. The boys think it's an adventure." Ryan closed his eyes, relief washing over him. "The news story. Was that your source?" "No." Jessica's voice was grim. "That came from somewhere else. Victor's getting sloppy, Ryan. He's rushing his endgame, which makes him dangerous. I'm meeting him in an hour. If he's behind the break-in attempt..." "Be careful," Jessica cut in. "I've sent you something else. Check your secure email. It's what they were probably looking for." Ryan opened the encrypted file. His breath caught as he scanned the documents. Detailed records of offshore accounts, all tied to shell companies that traced back to Victor. The transactions coincided perfectly with major Carter Enterprises deals over the past 5 years. "Where did you get this?" "Remember Linda Chen, your former CFO who retired suddenly last year?" Ryan remembered. Linda had been with the company almost from the start, but had stepped down citing health reasons. He'd never quite believed the excuse. "She's been gathering evidence," Jessica continued. "She reached out to me 3 months ago. She's the one who helped me understand Victor's entire scheme." A text from Victor interrupted. "Cars waiting downstairs, coming to get you." "He's not giving me time to prepare," Ryan muttered. "Because he's panicking," Jessica said. "Ryan, there's something else you need to know about the night you fired me." A sharp knock at his door cut through the conversation. "Mr. Carter," Victor's voice. "Security said you were home." "He's there?" Jessica's voice turned urgent. "Don't let him see anything. And Ryan, whatever happens today, remember, the boys are asking about you. They want to show you their science project tomorrow." The simple domesticity of her words, contrasting with the danger of the moment, made Ryan's chest tight. "I'll be there," he promised, before ending the call. He quickly closed the files, shutting his laptop as Victor used his emergency key to enter. The older man looked immaculate as always, but there was a new sharpness to his movements. "Quite a mess we're dealing with," Victor said, scanning the room. His eyes lingered on the framed photo Ryan had placed on his desk, one Jessica had given him yesterday of the twins at their 4th birthday party. Adorable children. Victor's smile didn't reach his eyes. "They take after their mother, and you, of course, though I've known that for quite some time." Ryan's hands clenched under his desk. "You knew all this time?" "Of course I knew, just like I knew Jessica would eventually try to use them to worm her way back in." Victor settled into a chair. "The question is, old friend, what are you going to do about it?" "About what?" "About the fact that your ex-lover is clearly behind these attacks on our company. The news story, the irregularities in our books, all perfectly timed with her return." Victor leaned forward. "She's trying to destroy everything we built, Ryan, using your own children as leverage." The irony of Victor's manipulation might have been amusing if it wasn't so dangerous. Ryan thought of the surveillance photos, the break-in attempt, the years of orchestrated separation from his sons. "What do you suggest?" he asked, playing for time. "We accelerate the Morrison deal, push it through before these rumors gain traction, and..." Victor paused meaningfully. "We deal with Ms. Morgan's interference permanently." A chill ran down Ryan's spine. In the background, his laptop pinged again. Another message from Jessica's source, he suspected. Another piece of evidence of Victor's treachery. "You're right," Ryan said carefully. "We need to handle this. Let me shower and change. We'll head to the office together." Victor nodded, satisfied. 15 minutes. "Oh, and Ryan, leave the laptop. PR will have everything we need at the office." After Victor stepped out to take a call, Ryan sent a quick text to an encrypted number Jessica had given him. Eagle's Nest compromised. Initiate Protocol 2. It was a warning they'd established. Victor was making his move sooner than expected. As Ryan headed to his bathroom, he heard Victor in the living room, undoubtedly searching for evidence. Let him search, Ryan thought. The real evidence was already safe, distributed across multiple secure locations, just like his children were now safe at the lake house, probably covering everything in sight with finger paints and dinosaur stickers. He had a family to protect now. And Victor had just made his first major mistake. He'd revealed just how desperate he truly was. The Carter Enterprises boardroom crackled with tension. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, storm clouds gathered over Denver's skyline, matching the atmosphere inside. Ryan sat at his usual place, watching board members file in, their faces grave as they glanced at the morning's headlines displayed on their tablets. Victor stood at the head of the table, orchestrating his performance with practiced ease. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming in early. As you've seen, we're dealing with a coordinated attack on our company's reputation. Ryan's phone vibrated silently. A text from Jessica. Lake house compromised. Moving to secure location B. Don't react. His heart raced, but he kept his expression neutral as Victor continued his presentation. On the massive screen behind him, graphs and projections painted a picture of impending disaster if the Morrison deal didn't close immediately. Our window of opportunity is closing, Victor emphasized. These baseless rumors, are they baseless? The question came from Eleanor Wright, the board's longest-serving member. She'd been there before Victor, Ryan remembered, back when the company was just 3 people in a garage. I have the audit reports right here, Victor began, but Eleanor cut him off. Not those reports, Victor. I'm talking about these. She slid a folder across the table. Documents that were delivered to my home this morning, showing systematic fraud going back 5 years. Ryan watched Victor's face carefully. The older man's composure slipped for just a fraction of a second before his smile returned, obviously fabricated. Part of this campaign to... They have Linda Chen's signature, Eleanor continued, and mine, though I never signed them. Someone's been forging board approvals, Victor. Would you like to explain that? The room erupted in murmurs. Ryan's phone buzzed again. Boys safe, but they found us, moving to final contingency. Time to end this. He stood slowly, drawing all eyes to him. Actually, I can explain it. He pressed a button on his laptop, and the screen behind Victor changed. These are the real numbers behind the Morrison deal, the ones Victor didn't want us to see. Page after page of evidence appeared. Offshore accounts, shell companies, forged signatures, 5 years of careful fraud, laid bare. This is absurd, Victor snapped, but his voice had lost its smooth confidence. Ook, Ryan, whatever Jessica Morgan has told you. Jessica? Ryan's laugh was cold. No, this came from Linda Chen. Remember her, the CFO you forced out when she got too close to the truth. He turned to the board. Linda's been gathering evidence for the past year, evidence that shows how Victor has been systematically looting our company while setting me up to take the fall. Security! Victor barked into his phone. They're not coming, said a new voice from the doorway. Linda Chen stood there, flanked by 2 federal agents. The FBI has some questions about certain offshore transactions, Victor. The boardroom erupted in chaos. Ryan's phone buzzed one final time. It's done. Evidence delivered to all major news outlets. But Victor's men found us. Need extraction now. Ryan's world narrowed to that single message as Victor made his move. The older man lunged for his briefcase, but Ryan was faster. The briefcase fell, spilling papers, and Ryan's blood ran cold. A loaded handgun. You don't understand! Victor snarled, reaching for the weapon. I built this company. I made you what you are. No! Ryan kicked the gun away as the FBI agents moved in. You just made me forget who I was, and it cost me 4 years with my children. As agents handcuffed Victor, Ryan was already moving. And Linda, handle the board. Eleanor, the press is going to swarm. Tell them everything. He caught the elevator just as his phone rang. "Jessica! Ryan!" Her voice was breathless. "We're in the old warehouse district, building 23 on Blake Street. They're right behind us." The call cut off. Ryan's Tesla screamed through downtown Denver, weaving through traffic as rain began to fall. He dialed Daniel Walsh, Jessica's head of security. "Beep, we've got eyes on them," Walsh reported. "2 black SUVs in pursuit. Ms. Morgan's trying to reach the safe house, but they're boxing her in." "How many men?" "At least 6. Victor's private security team. They're not afraid to make a scene anymore." Ryan pushed the accelerator harder, his mind racing. Jessica was brilliant, resourceful. She'd have a plan, but she also had their sons with her, and that changed everything. He spotted the warehouse district ahead, its abandoned buildings looming dark against the stormy sky. A black SUV screeched around a corner, followed by Jessica's vehicle, with another SUV close behind. Ryan cut through a side street, calculating trajectories. If he could just... The crash was deafening. He'd timed it perfectly, T-boning the trailing SUV and sending it spinning. Through his cracked windshield, he saw Jessica's car disappear around another corner, one pursuer eliminated. His door was stuck. Ryan kicked it open, rain soaking him instantly. In the distance, he heard tires squealing, then a sound that stopped his heart. Children screaming. He ran, his expensive shoes slipping on wet pavement. Around one corner, then another, following the sounds of chaos. He emerged into a wide loading area, just in time to see Jessica's SUV hemmed in against a brick wall. Men in tactical gear approached her vehicle, weapons drawn. Through the rain, Ryan could see Ethan and Caleb's terrified faces in the back window. "It's over, Miss Morgan," one man called. "Mr. Hale wants his insurance policy." "Actually," Ryan's voice carried across the loading dock, "Victor's a bit busy with the FBI right now." The men turned, startled, but Jessica was already moving. Her SUV's door burst open, and she rolled out, a taser in hand. The first guard went down, convulsing. Ryan tackled another as chaos erupted. Rain and shouts filled the air. He caught glimpses of Jessica, her corporate power suit soaked and muddy, fighting with a skill he'd never known she possessed. A gun went off. Someone screamed. Ryan's fist connected with a jaw, and he heard bones crack. Through it all, he kept the SUV in his peripheral vision, knowing his sons were watching, terrified. Then police sirens pierced the air, Walsh's backup arriving at last. The remaining men scattered, disappearing into the maze of warehouses. Ryan ran to the SUV, yanking open the back door. Ethan and Caleb launched themselves into his arms, sobbing. "Daddy, the bad men!" "Shh!" He held them tight, breathing in their scent, feeling their tiny hearts racing. "You're safe. I've got you. I've got you." Jessica appeared beside them, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead, but her eyes fierce with triumph. "Victor!" she gasped. "In custody. It's over." She sagged against the car, relief washing over her face. Their sons clung to them both now, forming a tight knot of family in the pouring rain. "Mom was like a superhero," Caleb whispered against Ryan's neck. "Yeah." Ryan looked at Jessica, soaked, muddy, victorious. "She always was. I just forgot that for a while." Police cars surrounded them, lights painting the rain in red and blue. Their sons were safe. Victor was finished. But as Ryan held his family close, he knew this wasn't really the end. It was just the beginning. Chapter 8. Aftershocks. The penthouse felt different in the grey light of dawn. Ryan sat on Jessica's couch, still wearing his rain-soaked clothes, watching his sons sleep in an exhausted pile of blankets and stuffed animals on the floor nearby. They'd refused to sleep in their beds, wanting to stay close to both parents after the terror of the previous day. Jessica emerged from her kitchen, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. She'd changed into yoga pants and an oversized sweater, her usual corporate armor stripped away. The cut on her forehead was bandaged now, but bruises were beginning to bloom along her jaw. "The boys' school called," she said softly, handing him a mug. "I told them they had a family emergency. Technically not a lie." Ryan accepted the coffee, noticing how his hands still trembled slightly. The news is everywhere. Victor's arrest, the fraud allegations, everything. Everything except the part about the car chase and shootout. Jessica settled into an armchair, wincing. Walsh's team made sure that stayed quiet, for the boys' sake. As if on cue, Ethan whimpered in his sleep. Both parents tensed, but Caleb instinctively reached for his twin, and they settled back into peaceful slumber. "They're so in tune with each other," Ryan marveled. "I've missed so much." "You're here now." Jessica's voice was gentle but firm. "And thanks to you, they're safe. We all are." Ryan met her eyes over his coffee mug. "Thanks to me. Jessica, you're the one who uncovered everything. You protected them for 4 years. He gestured to her injuries. "Since when do you know how to fight like that?" A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "Single mom with a high-profile tech company. I started taking self-defense classes the day after I left Carter Enterprises. Added Krav Maga last year when I realized Victor was watching us." She shifted in her chair, suppressing another wince. "Though I'll admit, yesterday put those skills to the test." "Ms. Morgan," Daniel Walsh's voice came quietly from the security monitoring room down the hall. "You're going to want to see this." They followed him to the bank of screens showing news feeds and security cameras. A press conference was underway at Carter Enterprises, with Eleanor Wright addressing a crowd of reporters. "The board has voted unanimously," Eleanor was saying. "Ryan Carter will remain as CEO with a new oversight committee to ensure complete transparency as we rebuild trust with our shareholders and partners." Jessica squeezed Ryan's arm. "Congratulations," but Ryan was shaking his head. "I don't want it. Not like before." "What do you mean?" "The company consumed me, Jessica. Made me forget what really mattered. Made me into someone who could—" He swallowed hard. "Someone who could throw away his own children." "Daddy!" Caleb's sleepy voice came from the doorway. They turned to find both boys there, blankets dragged behind them like capes. "Are you leaving?" Ryan knelt down, opening his arms. The twins rushed into them. "No, buddy, I'm not leaving. But I am going to change some things." "Like what?" Ethan asked, his head tucked against Ryan's shoulder. "Like making sure I have time for what's really important. For you guys." He looked up at Jessica. "For our family. If that's something you're willing to consider." Jessica's expression softened. "The boys need stability, Ryan. After yesterday, more than ever. They need to know they can count on you being there. I want to be there. For everything. School plays, science projects, dinosaur nugget dinners, all of it." "Can we have dinosaur nuggets now?" Caleb perked up. "I'm hungry." Jessica laughed, then winced, touching her bruised jaw. "It's 6 a.m., sweetheart." "Actually," Ryan said, "I make pretty good pancakes. If your mum doesn't mind me using her kitchen." The boys turned to Jessica with pleading eyes, and she raised her hands in surrender. "All right, but first, you two need to help me check on Mr. Scales, the bearded dragon," she explained to Ryan's questioning look. "Our pet. He gets anxious during storms." Ryan watched as his sons led Jessica to their room, chattering about their lizard's favorite snacks and sleeping spots. Such a normal, domestic moment, yet it felt like a gift he'd never deserved. His phone buzzed. Linda Chen requesting a meeting to discuss transition plans. The company still needed attention, still needed fixing, but not at the expense of this, not anymore. In the kitchen, he found everything meticulously organized. Of course, Jessica would run her home as efficiently as her company. He began gathering ingredients, listening to the sounds of his family down the hall. The boys' excited voices, Jessica's gentle responses. The morning soundtrack he'd been missing his whole life. The pancake batter was just coming together when tiny feet padded into the kitchen. "Can we help?" Ethan asked. "Mom lets us stir." "And add chocolate chips," Caleb added. "I think we can manage that," Ryan smiled. "Want to tell me about Mr. Scales while we cook?" As his sons pulled up kitchen stools and launched into elaborate stories about their pet, Ryan caught Jessica watching from the doorway. Her expression was guarded, but hopeful. "The security team did a final sweep," she said. "All clear. Victor's people have gone to ground. And Victor, being denied bail as we speak. The evidence is overwhelming." She moved into the kitchen, automatically reaching for plates and silverware. "The press will want statements from both of us eventually." "Let them wait," Ryan said, helping Ethan carefully measure chocolate chips. "We have more important things to focus on right now." Outside, the sun was finally breaking through the storm clouds, painting the Denver skyline in shades of gold. Inside, pancake batter sizzled, children laughed, and two people who'd lost their way found themselves building something new from the ashes of the past. It wasn't perfect. There were still wounds to heal, trust to rebuild, and a company to salvage. But watching Jessica show Caleb how to flip a pancake while Ethan solemnly distributed chocolate chips, Ryan knew one thing with absolute certainty. This was what success really looked like. Mr. Carter declined to comment on the ongoing investigation. The news anchor's voice filled Jessica's office as she worked through acquisition proposals. Sources say the fraud at Carter Enterprises may exceed initial estimates of... She muted the TV, rubbing her temples. 2 weeks had passed since Victor's arrest, and the media frenzy showed no signs of abating. Her own company's stock had actually risen, painted by the press as the whistleblower hero in the corporate scandal, but the attention was exhausting. Her intercom buzzed. "Mrs. Morgan, Mr. Carter is here with the boys." Jessica smiled despite her fatigue. It was Wednesday, their new routine. Ryan picked up the twins from preschool on Wednesdays and Fridays, bringing them to her office before they all had dinner together. The office door burst open, and 2 tornadoes of energy swept in. "Mom, look what we made in art class!" Ethan thrust a colorful creation at her, while Caleb danced impatiently with his own masterpiece. "These are beautiful." Jessica examined the paintings, noting how Ethan's showed their entire family, including Mr. Scales, while Caleb had created an elaborate dinosaur scene. Ryan followed behind, looking somewhat frazzled in his casual clothes. Another change from the strictly formal CEO she'd known. "Sorry, we're a bit early. The school had a water main break, so they called for early pickup." "No problem. I'm just finishing up." Jessica noticed a smudge of paint on Ryan's sleeve. "Art class got a bit messy." He grinned sheepishly. I may have volunteered to help when I picked them up. Did you know 4-year-olds have absolutely no fear of painting everything in sight? Including Daddy." Caleb giggled. His hair was blue. Jessica bit back a laugh, imagining the always polished Ryan Carter covered in children's paint. The past 2 weeks had shown her a different side of him, one that dove headfirst into fatherhood, making up for lost time with an enthusiasm that both warmed and worried her. "The board meeting went well?" she asked as the boys settled at their designated corner of her office, complete with toys and art supplies. Ryan nodded, sinking into a chair. "We're stabilizing. Eleanor's oversight committee is thorough, which we need right now, but the Morrison deal is officially dead." "Have they found all of Victor's accounts?" "The FBI is still tracing them. Linda's been invaluable in untangling the web." He hesitated. "They want to interview the boys." Jessica stiffened. "Absolutely not. That's what I said, but they're building a kidnapping charge based on the warehouse incident. Walsh's team has provided their evidence, but they're for Ryan. They've barely processed what happened." Jessica watched their sons playing, their innocent laughter a stark contrast to the darkness they'd narrowly escaped. "I won't let them be traumatized all over again." "Mom," Ethan's voice interrupted, "can we show Daddy our secret place?" Jessica exchanged a look with Ryan. The secret place was the building's rooftop garden, her private retreat, where she'd often taken the boys to escape the pressures of running a company as a single mother. "Please," Caleb joined in. "We can have a picnic like we used to." "Actually," Ryan said carefully, "I brought dinner. It's in the car, that new Italian place you mentioned." Jessica felt a familiar tension in her chest. These moments of domestic harmony were becoming more frequent, and while the boys thrived on them, she struggled with the complexity of her feelings for Ryan. "Okay," she found herself saying, "but coats on. It's getting chilly up there." The rooftop garden was beautiful at sunset, the Denver skyline painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. The boys gave Ryan the grand tour, showing him their favorite spots: the small fountain, the butterfly bushes, the corner where they'd once spotted a nest of baby birds. "And this is Mom's thinking bench," Caleb announced, patting the wooden seat. "She comes here when she needs quiet time." Ryan's eyes met Jessica's. "I remember when you used to do that at the old office, find quiet spots to think through problems." "Some things don't change," she said softly. They settled on the picnic blanket Ryan had thought to bring, the boys diving into their pasta while their parents tried to maintain some semblance of dining etiquette. The normalcy of it all felt both right and terrifyingly fragile. "I had an idea," Ryan said as they finished eating, "about the media situation." Jessica raised an eyebrow. "Oh, what if we control the narrative? One interview, together, on our terms. Show that we're focused on the future, on our family, not on Victor's crimes." "The boys would be completely protected," he assured her. "No photos, no names published, just us showing that we're moving forward." Jessica watched as Ethan helped Caleb clean sauce from his face, the simple gesture of brotherly care bringing tears to her eyes. "I need to know this is real, Ryan. That you're not going to leave?" He moved closer, his voice low enough that the boys couldn't hear. "Jessica, these past 2 weeks have shown me what I was missing, what I threw away. I know I have to earn your trust back. I know it won't be easy, but I'm not going anywhere." A squeal of laughter interrupted them. The boys had discovered a late-season butterfly and were following it around the garden. "They asked about having a room at my place," Ryan said carefully, "for when they visit." Jessica's heart clenched. It was the natural next step, but the thought of her sons sleeping away from her, even with their father— "We could start slow," Ryan added, reading her expression. "Afternoon visits first, then maybe dinner and movies. Work up to overnights when everyone's ready. Can we have a lizard at Daddy's house too?" Ethan called, having apparently overheard. "One Mr. Scales is plenty," Jessica laughed, grateful for the interruption. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the garden, Jessica watched Ryan chase the boys around the fountain, their shrieks of joy echoing off the surrounding buildings. He was trying so hard, throwing himself into this new life with the same determination he'd once reserved for business deals. Her phone buzzed, another media request for an interview. Below it, a message from Linda about new evidence in Victor's case. The outside world continued to demand attention, but up here, in their private sanctuary, a different kind of foundation was being built. "Mom, come play," Caleb called, and Jessica found herself rising, drawn into their game of makeshift tag. Later, helping Ryan pack up the picnic as the boys examined an interesting bug by the fountain, she made her decision. "One interview," she said, "together, but we tell our story our way." Ryan's smile, the real one, not his corporate mask, lit up his face. "Together," he agreed. It wasn't perfect. They were still navigating boundaries, still healing old wounds. But watching her sons play with their father in the fading daylight, Jessica allowed herself to believe that sometimes broken things could be rebuilt into something stronger than before. The makeup artist's touch was gentle as she covered the last fading bruise on Jessica's jaw. In the brightly lit dressing room of Denver's top-rated morning show, everything felt surreal, like she was watching someone else prepare to tell her story. 5 minutes, Ms. Morgan, a production assistant, called. In the mirror, Jessica caught Ryan's reflection as he entered. He'd chosen a charcoal suit that somehow looked both professional and approachable. Eleanor's suggestion for the interview. His eyes met hers in the glass. "The boys are settled with Walsh's team in the green room," he said. "Apparently, Mr. Scales is proving to be quite the hit with the production staff." Jessica smiled. Bringing their pet lizard had been Caleb's idea, his way of making sure part of their family was present, even if the twins themselves would remain safely away from cameras. "Are we doing the right thing?" she asked softly. Ryan moved closer, careful not to disturb the makeup artist's work, having second thoughts. "Not about us," Jessica clarified. "About sharing our story. These past 3 weeks with you and the boys. It feels precious, private." "It is." Ryan's hand found hers, a gesture that was becoming increasingly natural. "But your PR team was right. Either we control the narrative, or the media will create their own." The door opened again, admitting Catherine Chen, the show's veteran host. She was Linda's cousin, one of the reasons they'd chosen this program for their exclusive interview. "Ready?" Catherine asked warmly. Remember, we'll focus on the future, your work with the Children's Education Foundation, the company's new partnership. Victor's name won't even come up unless you want it to." Jessica squeezed Ryan's hand before letting go. "We're ready." The studio lights were harsh, but the set had been designed to feel intimate. Comfortable chairs, warm colors, even fresh flowers that reminded Jessica of her rooftop garden. As they took their seats, she heard Ethan's distant laugh from the green room and felt her tension ease slightly. "Good morning, Denver," Catherine began once they were live. "Today, we're joined by 2 of our city's most prominent business leaders, Jessica Morgan, CEO of Morgan Digital Solutions, and Ryan Carter of Carter Enterprises. Thank you both for being here." The interview started smoothly, with practiced answers about their company's new educational initiative. Jessica spoke passionately about creating opportunities for single parents in tech, while Ryan detailed Carter Enterprises' commitment to transparency and community involvement. Then Catherine shifted gears. "You two share more than just a business vision, don't you?" Jessica felt Ryan's subtle support as he took the lead. "Yes, we do. Jessica and I have twin sons, beautiful, brilliant 4-year-old boys who remind me every day of what really matters in life. It couldn't have been easy," Catherine prompted gently, "co-parenting while running major corporations." "Actually," Jessica found her carefully prepared answer changing, "we're just starting that journey. Ryan recently came back into our lives, and we're learning together what it means to be a family. There must be challenges. Of course." Ryan's voice was thick with emotion. "I missed 4 years of their lives. First steps, first words, things I can never get back. But Jessica," he turned to her, going off script. "Jessica did something extraordinary. She not only built a successful company from nothing, she raised our sons to be compassionate, curious, amazing little people. She protected them, loved them, gave them everything I couldn't." Jessica blinked back tears, remembering lonely nights, endless board meetings with morning sickness, the way the twins had always reached for each other before reaching for her. "Ryan's making up for lost time," she said softly. "Every day he shows up. For science projects and skinned knees, for bedtime stories and morning tantrums. He's learning that success isn't just about business deals and profit margins." "And Jessica's teaching me," Ryan added. "That strength isn't about power or control. It's about being brave enough to trust again, to let love back in, even after being hurt." Catherine dabbed at her own eyes. "It sounds like you're building something special." "We are," Jessica smiled. "And not just for ourselves or our sons, but for all the families who might see their own story in ours. That's why we're launching the new Foundations Initiative, helping single parents pursue careers in technology while ensuring their children have every opportunity to thrive." The rest of the interview passed in a blur of questions about the initiative, but Jessica felt something had shifted. They'd come in prepared to present a united public front, but somewhere between the lights and cameras, real truth had emerged. After the final cut, as they walked back to the green room, Ryan caught her arm. "I meant every word," he said quietly, "about you being extraordinary, about learning what real strength is. Before Jessica could respond, the green room door burst open and two excited boys tackled their legs. "You were amazing," Ethan declared. Did everyone see Mr. Scales on TV?" Caleb asked anxiously. "No, buddy," Ryan laughed, scooping him up. "Mr. Scales was just backstage being a superstar with the crew." Looking at them, Ryan with Caleb in his arms, Ethan clutching her hand, their pet lizard somehow wearing a tiny bow tie, courtesy of the wardrobe department, Jessica felt the last of her walls crumbling. "We'll do pancakes," she suggested, and was rewarded with 3 identical grins, the same smile she'd fallen in love with years ago, now reflected in their sons' faces. As they left the studio, photographers caught them walking to their car, a happy family moment that would grace tomorrow's papers. But it was the unphotographed moments that followed that meant everything. Ryan teaching the boys to make heart-shaped pancakes, maple syrup ending up everywhere, Mr. Scales watching judgmentally from his terrarium, and Jessica realizing that sometimes the best foundations are built on forgiveness, second chances, and love that's strong enough to overcome even the deepest wounds. "You know," Ryan said later, helping her clean up while the boys napped, "I think we just wrote our own headline." "Oh," he pulled her close, pancake batter still on his shirt. "Ed Morgan Carter family proves love is the best investment." For the first time in 4 years, Jessica let herself fully relax in his arms. "I think I like that headline," she whispered, and felt his smile against her hair. "What do you mean, he's not breathing properly?" Ryan's voice cracked as he rushed through the emergency room doors. Jessica was already there, her usual composure shattered, pacing the waiting area. "But it happened so fast," she said, falling into his arms. 1 minute Ethan was fine, playing with Caleb. The next he couldn't catch his breath. The school nurse said it might be an allergic reaction, but where is he? Ryan looked around frantically. They took him back immediately. Caleb wouldn't let go of his hand, so they let him stay. Jessica's voice broke. Ryan, he looked so small on that gurney. The past month of family bliss, weekend outings, shared dinners, Ryan's growing presence in their daily lives suddenly felt like a distant dream. Now they were facing every parent's nightmare, and all their corporate power, all their carefully built success, meant nothing. A doctor emerged from the treatment area. "Mr. Carter, Miss Morgan, I'm Dr. Reynolds. We've stabilized Ethan's breathing, but we need to run more tests. It appears to be an acute allergic reaction, but the trigger isn't immediately clear." "Can we see him?" they asked in unison. The doctor nodded, leading them through the sterile corridors. In the pediatric ward, they found Ethan in a bed that seemed too big for him, monitors beeping steadily. Caleb sat beside him, holding his twin's hand, tear tracks on his face. "Mommy, Daddy!" Caleb's voice was a whisper, as if afraid to disturb his brother. "Ethan's being super brave." Ethan managed a weak smile, an oxygen mask fogging with his breath. Jessica immediately moved to smooth his curls, while Ryan took in the various machines and tubes with growing horror. "Hey, champion," Ryan said softly, taking his son's other hand. "You're giving us quite a scare." Sorry," Ethan mumbled through the mask. "No, baby, don't apologize," Jessica soothed. "Just focus on getting better." Dr. Reynolds consulted her charts. "We need to run allergy panels. Has Ethan ever shown any allergic tendencies before?" "No, never," Jessica frowned. "He and Caleb have always been perfectly healthy. They even had the same lunch today at school." "But Ethan tried the new juice," Caleb piped up. "The one in the special cup." Ryan and Jessica exchanged alarmed looks. "What juice, sweetheart?" Jessica asked carefully. "At recess, a lady gave it to him. She said it was a special treat because she knew our daddy." The room temperature seemed to drop 20 degrees. Ryan was already pulling out his phone, calling Walsh's security team, while Jessica pressed Caleb for details. "What did this lady look like, baby?" "Pretty, blonde hair. She had sparkly shoes and knew our names. Dr. Reynolds, sensing the shift in atmosphere, ordered immediate blood work. Within hours, the results confirmed their fears. traces of a substance that had triggered a severe allergic response, one that wouldn't normally be found in children's juice. Walsh's team descended on the school, working with local police. Security footage revealed a well-dressed woman matching Caleb's description, but her face was carefully angled away from cameras. Victor's ex-wife, Ryan said grimly, looking at still frames on his tablet. Charlotte. She used to work in pharmaceutical research before... Before what? Jessica demanded. Ryan's face was ashen. Before she was institutionalized for attempting to poison Victor's business rival's child 5 years ago. She was released 6 months ago. Victor never told me. Jessica felt her knees buckle. Ryan caught her, helping her into a chair. On the bed, Ethan had finally drifted to sleep, Caleb still maintaining his protective vigil. "This is my fault," Ryan whispered. "All of it. Victor, Charlotte, they're from my world, the world I chose over you and our boys." "No," Jessica's voice was fierce. "This is Charlotte's doing, and Victor's, but right now, that doesn't matter. What matters is protecting our sons." Through the night they took shifts, one sleeping in the uncomfortable hospital chair while the other kept watch. The twins refused to be separated, so the staff brought in a second bed, pushing it next to Ethan's. Walsh's team guarded the door, and police monitored the hospital entrances. Around dawn, as Jessica dozed in the chair, Ryan watched his sons sleep. Caleb had reached across the gap between beds to hold Ethan's hand, their matching faces peaceful in slumber. The sight broke something open in his chest. "I should have been there," he whispered, not realizing Jessica was awake. All those nights when they were sick, or scared, or just needed their father. "I chose power and control over love and family. I let Victor twist me into someone who could abandon his own children." Jessica moved to stand beside him. "You can't change the past, Ryan, but you're here now, when it matters. I want to be here for everything, not just the big moments or emergencies." He turned to her, eyes bright with tears. "Jessica, marry me." She stared at him, shocked. "Ryan, not because of this scare, not because it's expected, but because I love you, all of you. I love the family we're building, the life we're creating. I love that you're stronger than me, braver than me. I love that you never gave up on showing our boys what real love looks like. You love me." Her voice was barely audible. "I never stopped, even when I was too blind to see it, too caught up in Victor's manipulation to admit it. I love you more now than I did 4 years ago, because now I see all of you, the mother, the warrior, the brilliant businesswoman who built an empire while raising our children alone." A small voice interrupted them. "Does this mean we get to be ring bearers?" They turned to find both boys awake, watching them with identical grins. Even Ethan, his color improving, had pushed aside his oxygen mask to smile. "She hasn't said yes yet," Ryan pointed out. Jessica looked at her sons, their hope, their love, their resilience. She looked at Ryan, changed, humbled, but stronger for it. She thought of all they'd overcome, all they'd built, all they could be together. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes." The boys tried to cheer, but Ethan's came out as a wheeze, sending doctors rushing in. In the chaos that followed, breathing treatments, police updates, hospital paperwork, Ryan and Jessica remained connected, their hands linked as they faced each challenge together. They were no longer just co-parents navigating a complex relationship. They were a family, battle-tested and unbreakable, ready to face whatever storms lay ahead. 1 year later, the rooftop garden of Morgan Digital Solutions had been transformed. White chairs lined a flower-adorned aisle, and Denver's skyline provided a stunning backdrop for the intimate gathering. At the makeshift altar, Ryan shifted nervously, watching the elevator doors. "Stop fidgeting," Linda Chen whispered from her spot, as efficient. "They'll be here." Ryan smiled, remembering how far they'd come. After Charlotte's arrest and subsequent return to psychiatric care, they'd decided to keep their wedding small, family and close friends only. The guest list included Linda, Eleanor, Walsh's security team, and the handful of people who'd helped them rebuild their lives. The elevator chimed, and Ryan's heart stopped. First came Caleb and Ethan, now 5 years old, carrying their rings with solemn importance. They wore matching navy suits, their curls tamed for the occasion, matching their father's attire perfectly. Then Jessica appeared, and the world fell away. She'd chosen a simple ivory dress that caught the late afternoon light, making her glow. But it was her smile, confident, loving, completely unguarded, that took Ryan's breath away. In her hands, she carried a small terrarium. Mr. Scales insisted on being part of the ceremony, she'd told him last night, laughing. The boys were very persuasive. Now, watching her walk toward him, Ryan remembered that dark night in the hospital 6 months ago. Ethan had fully recovered, showing no lasting effects from Charlotte's attempt to harm him. If anything, the incident had brought them closer, showing them all what really mattered. Jessica reached him, passing the terrarium to an amused Linda. Their sons took their places between them, creating a perfect family circle. "Dearly beloved," Linda began, "we're gathered here today not just to witness a wedding, but to celebrate a journey of redemption, of forgiveness, and of love strong enough to overcome any obstacle." Ryan squeezed Jessica's hands as Linda continued. They'd chosen this spot deliberately, the place where their reconciliation had truly begun, where they'd first started to believe in second chances. "Mom, you're crying?" Caleb stage whispered, making everyone laugh. "Happy tears, baby," Jessica assured him, though she didn't take her eyes off Ryan. When it came time for the vows, they'd chosen to speak from the heart rather than recite traditional words. "Jessica," Ryan's voice was thick with emotion, "4 years ago, I lost my way. I chose ambition over love, power over family, and it cost me everything that really mattered. But you turned that loss into strength. You built something beautiful from the ashes of my mistakes. You raised our sons to be compassionate, brave, and wise beyond their years. You showed me that true success isn't measured in profit margins or corporate acquisitions, but in the love we give and receive. I promise to spend the rest of my life proving worthy of the second chance you've given me, of the family we're building together." Jessica took a shaky breath, tears flowing freely now. "Ryan, when you came back into our lives, I was afraid to trust, afraid to hope. But watching you with our boys, seeing you choose every day to be present, to be patient, to love unconditionally, I fell in love with you all over again. Not with the ambitious CEO I knew before, but with the father who makes heart-shaped pancakes, who knows every dinosaur name by heart, who holds us when we're scared and celebrates when we're strong. I promise to keep building this life with you, to face whatever comes next together, and to always remember that love is the greatest investment we can make." "The rings?" Linda prompted, and the twins stepped forward importantly. As they exchanged rings, Mr. Scales watched with what seemed like approval from his terrarium. The boys had insisted on including him in their family photos, and somehow it felt perfectly right. "By the power vested in me," Linda announced, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Their first kiss as a married couple was interrupted by twin shouts of "group hug" as their sons launched themselves at their legs. Ryan and Jessica simply pulled them closer, their family circle complete. The reception was exactly what they'd wanted, casual, joyful, filled with laughter. Eleanor gave a toast that had everyone both laughing and crying, while Walsh's team pretended not to wipe away tears. The twins insisted on giving their own speech, a rambling but heartfelt declaration about how having both parents together was better than dinosaurs and Mr. Scales combined. As the sun set over Denver, casting the city in shades of gold and pink, Ryan found Jessica at their favorite spot by the fountain. "Mrs. Carter," he smiled. "Actually," she corrected with a grin, "we agreed on Morgan Carter, remember, for all of us. The Morgan Carter family." He pulled her close. "I like the sound of that." "Daddy!" Ethan called from across the garden. "Come quick! Mr. Scales is doing something weird." "Duty calls," Ryan laughed, but Jessica held him back for a moment. "I have something to tell you," she whispered. Ursay was going to wait, but she took his hand, placing it gently on her stomach. The Morgan Carter family is about to get a little bigger. Ryan's eyes widened. You're... She nodded, her eyes shining. 3 months? The boys don't know yet. I thought maybe we could tell them tomorrow, make it special. Dad, Mom, hurry! Caleb's voice joined his brother's. Ryan kissed his wife deeply, then rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he whispered. All of you. Together, they walked toward their sons, toward their future, toward all the adventures and challenges that lay ahead. The rooftop garden had witnessed their reconciliation, their healing, and now their new beginning. Below them, Denver sprawled out like a map of possibilities. Above them, the first stars began to appear. They had built something stronger than corporate empires, more valuable than any business deal. They had built a family founded on trust, strengthened by adversity, and bound together by a love that had survived every test. The Morgan Carter family was ready for whatever came next. Together. The end. That was a beautiful story, wasn't it? I hope you enjoyed it. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your collaboration is very important to me.